Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I am your host, Kevin L. Powers. I am also the festival director and program director for Something Wicked Film Festival and Events, and welcome to our podcast today. Now, we are delving in a little bit of different territory this episode because we're doing something that's a little bit more modern than most of the films that we talk about. So this is going to be a very interesting one because a lot of our listeners out there probably have already seen this movie because it is not an older film. We're gonna venture off into this with this film, but we hope to bring some more modern day films in as we go along because we know how much you, the audience, love some of these modern day films. So the film we are discussing today, obviously, if you've read the title of the episode, is Ready or Not. And to speak about this film with me is Philip Ray and Sarah Panazzo, who I hope that you all know very well by now. But thank you two for joining us for the show.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
Thank you for having us.
All right, and the thing is, because it's a more modern day film, we're gonna have a little fun with this. So since we all were born in the decade before this movie came out and was released, I want to get everyone's impression of when they saw it. And I'm gonna go last, even though I did not see this movie at the theaters, although I wish I had. I don't know if either one of you two did.
I did.
I did as well.
See, I'm the one left out then. Okay. So,
how's it feel, Kevin?
It feels weird. I'm usually not the one left out of these conversations. But, Panazzo, tell us a little bit about your first impression when you first saw this movie.
I got really excited about this movie after seeing the trailers because we had just had You're Next a handful of years before, and this seemed like You're Next is darkly funny, but it's more dark than it is funny, and this seemed like the funnier version of that. Plus Samara Weaving had like all of the hits around this time, and I love everything she does. She is fantastic. And oh my gosh, just watching this in theaters, not knowing what was going to happen next was so much fun.
What about you, Philip?
Yep, same. I remember when I saw the trailer, I was like, like I hadn't known Samara Weaving before the movie, and I didn't know anything about the directors either. So when I saw the trailer, I was like, it looks fine. I have my AMC stuff. So I remember I went to the movies. I had free time. I was bored. I was like, you know what? I'll go see the movie. And I was floored about how much I enjoyed it. It was just everything about it was just the comedy. Samara Weaving, I fell in love with her after this movie. I was like, I was excited after to see more from her and stuff. It was I had a blast watching it. I really did, and I'm very happy to talk about it today because I need to get this on DVD or Blu-ray because that's how much I love it.
Yeah, I was going to say, based off what you said, Phil, I remember watching the movie and loving it, and then finding out that the directors had literally done nothing else other than one piece, and that was in the original VHS.
Oh.
Yeah, they did 10/31/98, which I believe was my second favorite one, and they directed, wrote, acted, edited, produced, and were the cinematographer between the two directors. So they hit the ground running with their little threesome that they had before, and then it became Radio Silence, which is now a huge company.
Yep. So when I watched this film, I didn't really get who was in the film, although I'd seen her in one of my favorite movies, which was Mayhem. I don't know if you've ever seen Mayhem. I saw Mayhem when it came out, and I was fucking floored by that movie. I thought it was the funniest freaking movie I'd ever seen at the time. And Steven Yeun and Weaving were like perfect in that movie. And then I realized that I'd seen her again in the remake of Picnic at Hanging Rock, which I thought was one of the very few remakes that I thought were actually really good compared to the original, because I always love that story. I've seen the original maybe way more times than I probably should have. So I was dying to see the miniseries when they redid it. But I didn't recognize that she was in this movie until after I saw the movie. I was like, oh shit, I know who this is. I was like, oh crap, why didn't I see this before? And then of course, the same thing happened with The Babysitter. I skipped over The
Yes.
Babysitter because it didn't click with me when I kept seeing the trailers for The Babysitter. It didn't click to me
It
until the second one
she
came out.
doesn't look like the same person. Like it's not the same.
Yeah,
Uh,
it just didn't click with me at all.
yeah. I did the exact same thing. I remember looking at her name and I was like, I know that name. And then I was like, oh my God, it's her.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did, and I wish I had realized this beforehand, and I would have seen Ready or Not at the theater because I wanted to see it, but I was like,
Well, now you can see the sequel in theater.
yes, I know. I don't know if it needs a sequel though.
I mean, there's been a lot of people talking about it. I'm interested because of the director they have attached. Adam Robitel. He's the guy who directed and wrote Taking of Deborah Logan, which is one of my favorites. Um, he wrote Paranormal Activity, Ghost Dimension, and then did director for Escape Room 1 and 2 and Insidious 4, I think.
Oh well, he did the escape room movies. I enjoyed both of the hell out of those movies.
Yeah, those were really interesting and entertaining.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Oh, so yeah, I was like, okay, he did Taking of Deborah Logan. I'm sold.
That movie we definitely need to talk about later. I just realized it's not on our list, and that is actually a really brilliant movie. So
It is. I also have a pairing to go with it called Relic.
oh,
Not the
like
one in
Relic.
the Field Museum, not that one.
I know which one you're talking about.
But they're very good sister pairings.
That's actually a really good point. I
Yes.
don't know if Philip has seen either one of them, so
I've not.
Taking of Deborah Logan is just mwah.
it is. It was better than I was anticipating it. Kind of like this movie. I didn't when I went in. I didn't really have much expectation. I saw the trailer. I thought the trailer was good, but it didn't. For me, it didn't make me want to go see it at the theater right then and there. It wasn't till later, which is why I missed it, which is why I hate myself. Deborah Logan was very much like that too. I didn't see when it first came out. I waited and I kept hearing a bunch of stuff about it. And I was like, damn, how did I? And then when I finally saw it, I said, holy shit, how did I miss this movie? I was like, and I don't know what it is. There are certain movies that excel at being better than what you think they are. It's like Cabin in the Woods was better than you expected to be, but you're not expecting what you get. And I think that's one of the great things about Ready or Not. I think that is something that you're not expecting. And it was a perfect blend of both the horror and comedy, which is very rare.
It really is. And it walked so Abigail could run. Because they did Abigail as well. And that just kicks it up to 11.
Well, it's like with Ready or Not, it's like, because, talking about the trailers and stuff, again, you look at the premise, and it's like, everyone's made the joke before about, oh, we're going to make hide and seek a horror movie. And if you told anyone that, they'll be like, that sounds stupid. That sounds like, that sounds like the early 20s, when they were doing like really kind of like bad premises for horror movies, like, oh, I guess we'll make, I don't know, a squirrel the villain. We'll make like a shark. We'll make
a zombie beaver, a shark tornado,
a shark tornado.
Zombie beaver, yeah.
It's going to be. So that's what people think about and stuff when they hear that premise. Like, so that's why it's like everyone's expectations. And again, Samara Weaving, no one she wasn't a big name, so everyone's expectations were super low. And I think that's why this movie succeeded so well, because everyone's like, holy shit, this actually is well thought out. The comedy
is.
The comedy is just really well.
The actors are all phenomenal character actors for the movie too. I mean, they portray their characters like perfectly.
And there's really objectively not like a lot of big names like on it, so it was not banking on like its star power a lot. And honestly, like, again, that's one of the good things. It made Samara Weaving's career. It made a lot of the cast is now someone's like, oh yeah, so like I think that makes it great because because there's no name attached to it. it's just the story you have to like get into, and then again they just do it so well.
Well, and then the fact that this was the introduction for Radio Silence, this was the first thing they all got together, and then they expanded from here, and they've done like 4 or 5 different movies at this point, I want to say.
I think so, because didn't they do one of the Screams, or are they coming up to doing one?
They did 2 Scream movies.
They did 5 and 6.
Okay.
And then they did Abigail, so there's 3 right there, but then they did like Devil's Due, Southbound, and then the 2 directors are the main producers for all of the VHS movies now.
They did Devil's Due?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
The things I'm really excited for with them, though, is they've got a couple of things for future projects in the next 2 years. The Butcher and the Wren, which is based on a fiction novel, a fantasy novel, I believe. Fountain of Youth, which is going to be a semi-comedy, I believe, about a bunch of these younger celebrity actors, kind of like this is like a mesh of different stars, and it's a brother and sister trying to search for this Fountain of Youth. But then they are the ones who've been given the reins to Escape from New York. And it's going to be the sequel with Carpenter as an executive producer. So I'm excited for that, knowing it's not a remake. And Wyatt Russell said he would not do it.
Oh, the other thing I'm kind of curious about too is Radio Silence doing a sequel to Escape from New York.
That's
what I just said.
That's what she said.
Sorry.
Like literally, that's what.
Thanks for listening, Phil.
Sorry.
Oh shit! You know, the thing is, John Carpenter. Don't get me wrong, John Carpenter, if you're listening to this, but we all know that you're just kind of taking a check and running with it at this point for all the remakes and stuff that are being made of your stuff. You're just taking the check and running with it. Because you got your own thing that you're doing, which is all your music, which is, by the way, phenomenal. And I think, I would love to see him do another sequel, finish out his trilogy with an old ass Kurt Russell. We're probably never gonna see that.
He'll do like a Bruce Campbell cameo at the end of the credits. It'll be
great.
So
it's okay to bring someone else in to take over for Snake Plissken to do a sequel like they did Mad Max Fury Road. We don't need Mel Gibson. We will need Kurt Russell, although Kurt Russell seems to be a running thing throughout our show, various episodes.
Actually, he comes up later on in this movie too.
But the Radio Silence have done some amazing work. The thing is, I really enjoyed what they did with the Scream franchise.
Yes.
I didn't hate part 3 because it had Parker Posey in it, so it had some moments. Part 4, I kind of dismissed completely. They revitalized that and made those damn movies fun with the last 2, so I'm all aboard whatever they come up with next.
Because they did 5, 6, and then is 7 the one that's in the works now?
7's in the works, but they dropped out of that.
Yes.
Something else. So
yeah, because they who was it? Fox, Warner Brothers, whoever took over and decided to get rid of their lead actress. But interesting enough, one of the directors and both of the writers appear in the movie. The 2 writers are the YouTube guys who are trying to teach you how to use a crossbow. And then Matt, the director, I believe was the guy screaming in the car driving down the road when he's like, "Get out of the road!" and she screams, "Fucking rich people." Apparently that was him. So
I do want to say this before we roll on that when we talk about stars in the movie, you do have 2 people who are not used to being in horror films, and I have to mention them, which is Andie MacDowell, who you're not expecting to be in a fucking horror movie. And especially, I don't get me wrong, I grew up watching a lot of shit with Andie MacDowell, so when her in this movie was like a complete shock. I was like, whether you're not, I didn't even know you were still acting, but that's a weird one to be in. And then don't get me wrong, I know I'm mispronouncing his name, but he's a character actor and he's always done some amazing work, which is Henry Czerny. I don't know if you pronounce it.
I believe so. And actually, it's not his first like horror movie. He's done a handful. He was in Fido and Falling Skies.
Oh, he was in Fido.
And then he was also in Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Sorry. That was like a very, very C+ movie. It was okay to watch once, and I've completely erased it from my brain.
Well, it's great because I brought up all the horror movies that he was in, and then how he appeared in Scream 6. And my husband's like, no, Mission Impossible and Clear and Present Danger.
Yeah. That dude has done so much shit. And I think I see him as a character actor. He just appears in shit randomly. I was like, God damn, I know that guy. And then of course he was in this movie, and he has some of the best moments of any of the supporting characters.
I mean, there's so many good ones, and then like Melanie Scrofano, who I've only known her from Letterkenny as a ridiculously drunk neighbor who loves her gin and tonics. And then she was in Winona Earp, where she's like a demon hunter or whatever, and she's a like professional badass. And then seeing her play this character in this movie, it's very, very funny.
Go ahead,
I
Philip.
also really liked Charles Braun. He was the clueless husband.
Oh yes.
He was the one who was watching the video about how to use the crossbow. I loved him too. He was so funny.
I mean, the whole cast is just great. I mean, you've got the maids and the butler, who all have their own little tidbit of stories peppered in there. And Adam Brody as like a second player is just phenomenal.
So for me, Adam Brody is like this actor who just kind of shows up at random stuff, and I never remember him in anything.
Did you never watch The OC, Kevin?
I did not watch The OC, but I am very aware of him being in The OC. Just like everyone is aware of The OC. I happen to not watch anything of that damn show other than the pilot. I was like, oh my God, no.
I was a teen girl in the 90s, 2000s. I had to watch it at least once.
Okay, off subject. I can get into some shows that are more female driven than they probably they should be. The OC was not one of them. Like, I can remember watching 90210, okay, but in Melrose fucking Place. But the fucking OC is not something that ever interested me in the slightest bit.
It was dark and dramatic, Kevin. No, the only part that I remember watching where Misha Barton like died on a beach or something. That's the only thing I remember.
Oh, jeez.
But he's done a good job.
You know what? I'm not gonna knock him. The thing is, Ready or Not has the entire cast is phenomenal, and
Yes.
like you said, even the maids and everyone have these little tidbits in them that you are not expecting to be funny and be entertaining, and there's not a wasted moment in the film. There's not a wasted moment in the story. You are engaged as an audience member from beginning to end, and you want to know all of these characters, which is really hard in an ensemble film, much less a horror ensemble film.
But they make it so easy in this film too, because it's not like a ridiculous amount. I think there's only 16 people really in the movie, 16 characters.
Really, just 16 people.
Yeah, I mean, there's the body count of 14, spoilers, but yeah, I believe there's only 16 people if you then count the one survivor and the surprise demon entity. That was the one part I didn't expect in the movie.
The end overall is one of the best parts about the whole movie, really.
So to make it even funnier, because this is their normal producer on this movie, he has written Darkness Falls, he wrote and produced Zodiac, he wrote The Losers, Amazing Spider-Man, and then he wrote and produced Scream 5 and 6. But his name is James Vanderbilt of The Vanderbilts, which makes this 5 times funnier than it needs to be, just because of what this movie is about.
Oh wow, I did not know that. That's a great little.
Yeah, that's something I found earlier today, and it's like common knowledge. And I was like, this is brilliant. Like, he must have had the time of his life.
That could be why the timing for all the characters is just so great. And the
Yes.
writing for all these characters is so great. That's great. That's great to know.
Yeah, it's a fun little fact, and it's like, I can't believe this is this guy. Like, that makes no sense, but he's done a good job. I mean, Zodiac is phenomenal.
Zodiac may be the one film of his I think is brilliant. Well, I think this is brilliant too, but in a different way. I absolutely love Zodiac, but some of the other movies you mentioned are like at the very, very, very bottom of my list, like Darkness Falls.
I mean, The Losers and Amazing Spider-Man were great for comic book movies, and that was the big thing with me.
Oh,
Because I remember going to the theater to seeing both of those.
which Spider-Man did he write?
The Andrew Garfield one, the
Okay,
first one, not the
not the
second.
second one.
Mhm.
So so that's a little redeeming there. Because if he had written the second one, I was like, oh Jesus, why am I watching half his movies? Why am I giving them a chance? All right, but I'm hesitant to tell a little bit about the story, so I want one of you to tell everyone about a little bit about the plot without giving it away, because I believe this is another one of those films where if you give too much away, I think people won't enjoy it nearly as much, because when we saw it, we were surprised by a lot of the stuff that we saw in it. And I know that there's going to be a lot of people out there who have seen it, and there's going to be a lot of people who have never seen it, because this is skated under the radar. I'm hoping that people, after watching Abigail, will and the Scream movies
And
will go back.
Scream, yeah.
Will go back
I'm
and check
hoping
this
it
out.
does.
So, um, anything to say in terms of trying to, like, if you were to give the audience a blurb about the film in order to get them to watch the movie?
So I would say the premise is about a woman married into a rich family, and there is a certain ritual that has to go about on the first day of their wedding. She meets the family, and there's some and they and the wife has to do a certain has to do a ritual to and other shenanigans happen because of it.
Philip,
Yeah.
you are horrible at this, but that's okay. That's why I wanted to see what would come out of your mouth. How about you, Panasa?
So, a woman is marrying who she believes to be the love of her life and finds out that not only has he not seen his family in multiple years, but he is among one of the richest families in the United States. I don't think they really specify where. But they have a family tradition of every time somebody joins the family via marriage, they have to play a game because they are the Ladomas Gaming Dominion. They are not an empire. They are not a legacy. So every time somebody gets married, they end up playing some kind of game. It could be Old Maid, it can be chess, it can be checkers, it can be bingo. And then there's sometimes that they have to play hide and seek.
And to add on to that, hide and seek with some dire consequences for
Yes.
somebody, which is where the horror and the comedy come into play. Panazzo mentioned a great movie earlier, which is You're Next, which is a film that might be darker than it is funny. For me, who grew up on watching 5 billion slasher movies from all the decades and not just the 2000s, I have a very rich background in slasher films and thought fucking Your Next was hilarious as shit. But that being said, this one plays the comedy much closer. And so
Yeah.
audiences, and there's a lot of in jokes. As now, when I rewatch it again, I might even have even more stuff to think about because of the whole Vanderbilt thing. I'm like, oh, that's just great there. Now I need to watch it because of that. But those aspects are what makes this movie much more interesting than some of the other horror films that we watched and talked about, because this one can be accessible to a lot of different audiences. People who don't normally go see horror movies can go watch Ready or Not and enjoy it. And there are moments of gore, and but it's not
there's
nearly,
like two main gore scenes that are a little much.
but they're nowhere near on the level as You're Next.
No, not at all. And I think that's where, like I said, the difference is there's that darkness of You're Next where it's very gruesome compared to this, where this every death is played for laughs. And
that's a good word. Yes.
Yeah. And it's very well done. You get that gratuitous violence, and it's done very well. It is quite graphic, but you don't quite get as graphic as You're Next.
Yeah. I almost think the humor is almost close to Hobo with a Shotgun, but not as gory either. That one almost was like a trauma film without actually being a 100% trauma film.
Because it's not as funny as like Tucker and Dale versus Evil, but it is a comedy.
I think for me, talking about the comedy, like one of my favorite things about this movie, I think it's also why I think it is accessible for a lot of people, is it plays thing you don't see often is, what if the killers are incompetent? Like, what if they don't know what the hell they're doing?
Well, and it's all very realistic. And I mean, it's why Samara Weaving plays a really good final girl, is she's not like wearing that plot armor where she's undamageable and she just manages to get through the night. Like, she's getting shot in the hand, and she's like getting scraped and having to jump out windows and barely escaping. And it's like, how far can you push yourself before you just give up and just accept your death?
There's one good moment with her, like near the end, going with that. She's basically kind of like becomes like primordial. Like she just starts like grunting and screaming because
her screams are so primal. It is impressive.
Well, the thing is, I saw the tone closer to Cabin in the Woods because of the you had the same type of character, but I believe this film is much more successful in terms of the ensemble cast. I like some of the characters in Cabin in the Woods. I don't love all of them. I think this film does a tremendously brilliant job with showcasing the entire cast, the different types of characters, and the situations that they are. That each one of these characters is completely different from everyone else. But Cabin in the Woods is also playing on cliches because they've all been drugged too. So
and I mean, they give them all such like distinct backgrounds. Like, you've got the opening with Helene and her husband, which happened 30 years prior. And then you get Helene interacting with her niece, where she just calls her brown-haired niece, and it's this whole thing of her niece's husband got like the easy game. He played old maid. And so he got to live, whereas her husband had to play hide and seek and did not survive. And so you can see that like jealousy and hardness of, I did not get to be the fun-loving, happy girl like my niece is, who's cracked out of her mind the entire movie. But like, you see those conflicts. You see the conflicts between the brothers, where Daniel is very conflicted as a family whole of, why are we even doing this? Just put us all out of our misery. We're awful people. And then just the whole aspect of the mothers trying to protect their children. It makes some very good conflict in the movie that makes it very realistic.
Well, again, what goes great with that is there's that air the entire time of, is this real? Like they think, oh, if we don't continue, we're going to die. And and you kind of question that the entire time. Like, is that true? Or is this something they've made up? And you really question it to the end. And that's honestly such a good subline with that too. And it's, the payoff is so good with that.
Well, and it would have been a good movie with it or without it. Like if they would have just ended with like it's dawn or whatever, and then just kind of end it there of like, well, did nothing happen? Do they pull a Sopranos of like we don't know exactly what happened? Or do they do the payoff that they did?
Trust me. We're not gonna reveal the payoff, but I will say it had me laughing my ass off the first
Oh
time.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't think this is one of those films like Tucker and Dale versus Evil, where every time I watch it, I just can't stop laughing and laughing more. It's rare that I come across a good horror comedy that does that. I really do enjoy a good horror comedy that doesn't break its own rules and makes for a very good film. Because it rewards the repeat. And those are the type of horror comedies I like to watch. I like to rewatch them. More so than a slasher movie. I will definitely rewatch a horror comedy more times than I will a standard slasher movie. So
Yeah, and so it will interest you to know that there was a different ending originally that based on the time period they decided to rewrite the ending.
Which is good. It reminded me a little bit of Get Out with that. Of like they had originally a more darker ending in that movie, and
Yeah.
they decided, you know what?
It's too bleak.
Let's
Yeah.
too bleak. Let's not make a bleak ending. And for both of these movies, I would say that's a good call because the bleak ending, I think, it would have maybe been okay, but I think the endings they chose actually makes the movies better.
Yeah, because it flows. The ending is what makes you come back every single time. Like it would have been a complete tone change if they would have kept the original ending.
I will agree with you on both on that because I believe if they had changed the ending to the more bleak ending, it would be like something me and Philip already discussed, which is unfortunately you missed out on that one. The ending to The Mist. If The Mist had a happier ending, I think more people would have watched it more than once. I think because that is such a bleak ending, it's one of those movies that people watch once and never watch again.
But
it
is by far one of my favorite movies. And Frank Darabont has written the only movie Stephen King thinks did better than his books, which I can agree because that ending is genius and awful at the same time. And it is so heartbreaking. And it just destroys everything about that movie. And you can't help but go back and watch it again.
Well,
I love it.
There's for people like us, horror fans, we will go back to those type of movies because we don't mind the bleak ending. But for general audiences who hated that ending because it was too bleak, I guarantee you none of them are watching The Mist again. But people who are watching Cabin in the Woods multiple times, Tucker and Dale versus Evil, Ready or Not, multiple times.
Those people who didn't like the ending of The Mist didn't understand Cabin in the Woods. They thought it was just another Cabin in the Woods movie with teenagers getting killed.
Cabin in the Woods is such a great movie. And the ending is bleak too, but funny bleak. It's a funny bleak.
I actually read a funny article about it earlier this week they were asking about a sequel for Cabin in the Woods. And I think it was like at the original release where they had the Q&A with the director. And he was like, did you not see the ending?
Oh, shit. Oh, man. You know, we don't get to talk enough about horror comedies. You know, I can't remember the last time we did one because we have a couple coming up.
We've talked about doing like more genre bent specifics, like when we talked about Westerns. But yeah, I don't know. I think Club Dread was going to be one of them we were going to talk about, which is another genius one. But yeah, I can't remember if we've done any others.
I think Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, with those horror comedies, there's always when they're done well, again, it's just like it's always a fine line with that of making it, again, it depends on the tone too of like, do you want to be how, again, there's so many examples of them going way too far with a comedy and then sometimes going way too much with the horror without the comedy, and then sometimes you have movies like this where it's like it's the perfect blend.
Yeah, because it's not super campy.
Yeah.
And it plays like everyday life almost.
Well, it's like you
Almost.
really, I the what's the name of her? What's the name of her? Grace. So Grace Samara Weaving's character is so, again, the writing's so good. You root for her the entire time because there's a lot of times with these horror movies, the main characters don't have a lot to them, so you don't really, they're just there for either cannon fodder or they're just there to like just be the person, the damsel in distress. And like in this movie, again, Grace is someone that like there's a lot of good scenes at the beginning of the movie where you kind of like someone you can relate to, so you root for her the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, she spells out from the beginning that she was a kid in foster care and all she ever wanted was a family, which is why she begged Alex to have this wedding so they could be with family. And Becky, his mom, is like, you are by far my favorite, like, child spouse. Because they came from similar roots. I mean, Becky goes on to say she didn't have blue enough blood to marry her husband. And it just kind of plays out from there. You see the mother-daughter-in-law bonding, and then you see these relationships develop between the characters, like her and Daniel as well. Because they play off each other really well throughout the movie, and he really cares and tries to get her out of the wedding before it even happens.
Yeah. Okay.
And even Daniel's character arc is very interesting.
It's so good.
All right. So, any other aspects of the film that you would like to reveal?
Are we gonna do like a secret reveal, like how we did at the end of Autopsy of Jane Doe?
You know what?
Or we can talk about some other stuff, or maybe like a spoiler warning where we then do all the spoilery stuff at the end. Because I have a lot of questions and a lot of concerns.
Okay, so our listeners out there, for the actual episode that you're listening to now, we will not reveal all the revealing stuff that we would like to tell you about, but we want you to go out there and watch the film and enjoy it on your own. We do believe that the film has some great elements in it that make it one of the better horror comedies in the last couple of decades, actually. So we won't reveal those to you right now. But at the end of this episode, we will be recording some what we like to call cut scenes. So we will have some cut scenes that you'll have to go to our Patreon page to go to. But right now, we're going to talk about any last minute things for the regular episode before we get to that. So any final words from either one of you in regards to Ready or Not?
I did want to mention the brilliant hide and seek song that they wrote for the movie. It is brilliant. It is so creepy, but it totally sounds like something that would play on an old-timey record player, like super old gramophones. It's very fun. It is very catchy. I've been humming it the last like 3 days. But I think it would just brilliant work. It totally adds more to the movie because they play it twice, I believe, and then I think they use it in some instrumentals a little bit as well.
Okay. What about you, Philip?
Again, I think it really is again, if you're someone who can't do a lot of horror, especially the like when it gets really gory or bloody, I think this is this is the movie for you, that you can watch that stuff and just enjoy the hell out of it and stuff. And then go see Abigail after watching this.
That one's like this one on cocaine. There is so much blood in that movie.
There is. I think me and Philip discussed a little bit about Abigail. I thought Abigail, for like the first 2/3, 3/4, I really fucking enjoyed. I just didn't care as much for the ending in that one. It's not nearly as much as I have in their Scream movies or in this film.
We'll have to talk about that later tonight.
We should do Abigail.
Yeah, I was gonna say we need to do an
It
Abigail episode.
Just hit DVD this week because I got it in the mail.
Hey,
I got mine in the mail about a month ago
I mean,
How did you get yours a month ago, Kevin?
because I have a Chinese import. So
I do have some. Go ahead.
okay, anyone who's listening out there, don't think it's bad to buy some Chinese products. I do get some imports early because I missed the movies at the theater, and for some reason, there's a couple companies out there in which you can get the films really early before they reach the U.S. on DVD. That's how I got Abigail. That's how I got a ton of movies that I missed. I just get them from this place, this website, and I get to watch like their pristine copies of Blu-ray. So. Abigail, yes, I saw that. I sat on my shelf for a couple of weeks before I actually got around to watching it. But I think me and Philip discussed it recently, and we should definitely do an episode of Abigail because it would partner up with this pretty fucking brilliantly. So
It would. I do have some technical facts before we go into secret
okay, go ahead.
mode. So it had a budget of $6 million and it made a
Okay.
worldwide gross of 57.6. It did, I believe it said over 8 million in the US alone for opening weekend.
Yes.
So it was very well done. There was only one set built for the entire film, and that was the goat pit. Everything else was filmed on location in Canada at Casa Loma, which is Spanish for Hill House, which I thought was hilarious. That's where they filmed like X-Men, that's Xavier's University, Chicago, Scott Pilgrim, Crimson Peak, Titans, Hemlock Grove, etc., etc.
Okay.
And then they've also filmed at Parkwood Estate, which I believe was most of the backyard garden section, which is Billy Madison, The Boys, Chicago, Doom Patrol, Hemlock Grove, X-Men Again, and Nightmare Alley. So they're both giant mansions that are open to the public for like tours and such. But yeah, just the fact that that's Billy Madison's backyard is kind of funny.
Which on a
Talking
side
about
note,
rich people and their stupid stuff.
well, on a side note, I have heard rumors that they're trying to do a Billy Madison too, and I'm like,
They are.
oh my god, it's true. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. He's
oh
got to
God.
keep his friends busy and earning money. The other stuff that I found out was there were 17 different versions of the wedding dress, and they
Oh.
had to teach Samara Weaving how to drive or to look like she was driving because she had not driven yet, I guess. Or maybe she had never driven US style. I don't know how they drive in Australia.
I don't either.
It is funny because going like not knowing how to do stuff, the actress for Charity, they never told her how to hold a spear gun.
Yes.
They decided to continue not to tell her, which again, that goes in the whole hilarious thing of again, they're all
Nobody's trained. These things are in the house.
yeah, they've never killed before, so they're just kind of like, I don't know what to do.
How to use a crossbow. How to use Grandpa's guns. Speaking of Grandpa's guns, there are 3 main guns in this movie, and I only noticed it because of Grace's gun halfway through the movie. So the first one that's really big is Emily's gun, which is a pepper box, which conveniently is the version of the gun in Clue since 1972. Grace's gun, which was a William Moore and Company 8-gauge shotgun, was only used in one other film, and that's what I recognized it from, is it is Bert's gun in Tremors. It's the elephant gun.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
And then the last one, I said I was going to bring up our favorite person again, but the last gun is Tony's gun, which is the Winchester Model 1892, which was used in a ton of Westerns. But on top of that, it was in Creature from the Black Lagoon, Them, The Blob, Fury Road, Tremors again, and then our favorite, Bone Tomahawk. It is Kurt
man.
Russell's gun.
Of course.
I know. So
I
I
mean,
thought that was
we're
really
creating-
funny.
Yeah. Well, we're creating the 7 degrees of
Of
Kurt
Kurt
Russell here.
Russell. They also submitted 200 fictional board games to their legal team, and only 8 of them were allowed to be used in the film. And you can see them when they do the wide shot of the family's group of board games. They've got such games such as Family Ritual, Secret Council, Sunrise, LaBelle's Gambit, and Abracadabra.
I've never heard of any of those games.
Yeah, that's because they're not real, Kevin. That's why they were cleared. Everything else was too similar to other games.
You serious? Oh my God.
But yeah, those are some fun facts that I thought were very interesting.
Okay. All right. How about you, Philip? Any final words?
Nope.
Nope.
We pretty much covered everything. Yeah.
We did. I think this is one of those rare horror comedies where all of us agree that this is a film where we think everyone should actually go out there and watch. This is like our top 10 best films of all time that we've been talking about, because all of us agree that this is definitely a movie you should watch. And it doesn't have a star in it by any means. It's not directed by a name director. You're not hearing this is Stan Winston special effects or Rob Bottin special effects. You're not hearing any of that from us. This is literally a film that came out of nowhere. With no preconceived notions. It just took the audience by storm, and that's very rare, very rare. And I'm glad the film was successful. I'm glad.
Yeah, because clearly in the last 6 years they've skyrocketed. I mean, they've done some really big sellers over the last couple years.
It made the director's career, and it made Samara Weaving's career. Like, both of these are. That movie was just, again, it was a rocket for both of them.
Yeah, I doubt she would have been in the Babysitter movies had this not been successful, and she's fucking brilliant in those movies too. So, but that being said, I hope everyone has enjoyed this conversation in horror. And if you go to our Patreon page, you'll be able to see the cut scenes that we're about to do. But we hope that you will seek out some of the other episodes that we've also done. And by all means, drop us a line. Let us know what types of films you would like us to have conversations about. And we'll add them to our list. That's what we're here for. With that, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. And everyone out there, have a good day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, produced by Kevin L. Powers, executive produced by Kelly A. Inoka, and originally filmed via Zoom technology. Conversations in Horror is hosted by Kevin L. Powers and co-hosted by various horror film lovers and filmmakers. To learn more about Mr. Powers, please make sure to check out his Patreon page and other social media platforms. Conversations in Horror is copyright 2024 Broken Lighthouse Pictures production.